guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I am cooking a soup. One of my favorite things about the fall is a warm soup. Today's soup is a wild rice chicken soup, which I simply love. So I'm going to walk you through the ingredients really quick. Most of them are self-explanatory, but this is a skinless, boneless chicken thigh. The seasonings that I use are McCormick's veggie seasoning, rosemary, thyme, and garlic powder. Those are key. Also a heavy whipping cream, a little bit of olive oil, organic chicken broth, and this is the key, Uncle Ben's long grain wild rice. There's a seasoning there that you need. I also have mushrooms. Usually I use fresh, but I was out of them today. Garlic, red onion, steamed carrots, celery, and a loaf of bread. And it doesn't have to be sourdough. Sometimes I use rye, sometimes I use different types depending on what's on sale. So the first thing I do is wash off my chicken. By the way, you can make this without meat, which I do now by using mushrooms, like the thick portobello mushrooms, and seasoning them the same way I'm seasoning the chicken and just baking them in the oven. I put the garlic powder and the veggie seasoning on both sides, making sure that whatever your base is going to be, whether it's chicken or mushrooms, are seasoned is going to be key to giving your soup a lot of flavor. So once I season up my meat or my mushrooms, I go ahead and take it to the oven. I usually set the oven to, well, honestly, I set the oven to whatever is on the top of my head because I don't write down recipes. But today I actually broiled the chicken thighs, which is a really quick way to cook your meat really fast, and it gives it a nice little char, which I love. While the meat is cooking, I cut up my vegetables. I try to cut it up into not too small because a chunky soup is what I like, but if you don't want a chunky soup, you can definitely cut your celery and your onions up a little bit smaller, but I just kind of dice mine. I cut the onions a little bit smaller, and by the way, today I'm using red onions, but usually I use sweet yellow ones. The vegetables are ready to go. The carrots have been steamed. It's better to use a steamed carrot, that way you don't have to cook your soup as long. And then I just put them into the pan. I use a pretty big size pot, and I put the garlic in with all of the vegetables except for the carrots, and I kind of just saute these vegetables first, getting a lot of flavor on them. I put a little garlic powder on them as well, and some more McCormick's veggie seasoning because you want your vegetables to be flavorful too. You don't want to overcook these. I just really give them a saute and a season and some olive oil, but I don't overcook them. I just kind of let them get a little bit tender. I then add the carrots because I want the carrots to have the seasoning too. Even though they have been steamed already, you still want them to get the seasoning on them. So I make sure that I let them blend in there as well. By that time, the chicken is ready. I take it out. I cut it up into little cubes. Sometimes I kind of shred it because it just adds a little meatier texture, and it makes the soup more of like a chowder as opposed to a soup. So it depends on what you're going for. Then it's time to add the goods. I put in the Uncle Ben's long grain rice and the seasoning, and this seasoning is everything. It makes the soup taste so flavorful. After that, I add my chicken broth, and I just let that simmer a little bit. And then after I use the chicken broth, then it's time for the meat. I usually stir it up really good, and then I add in my meat. Be careful how you put your meat in, just because you don't want it to splatter. At this point, it's pretty hot. And I've kind of caught myself before, so be careful. Once I put in my chicken or my mushrooms, depending on what I'm using for the day, I will stir it up really good, let it get a little simmer, and then I add in the whipping cream. Now we try to kind of stay away from dairy and meat, so I will use the portobello mushrooms and a vegan non-dairy whipping cream, and that works just as good. I then put in some more seasonings. This is going to be really important. I use garlic powder and I use thyme, a lot of thyme actually, and some rosemary. And then I just let it simmer on a medium heat. It's gonna come to a rolling boil at a certain point, and then I just put the fire down a little bit. So now I'm gonna make the bread. This is a honey butter that is everything. It's so simple to make. Again, if you are going for a vegan meal, there is a non-dairy form that you can use for butter, and I just simply mix in the honey and stir it up, and then I go ahead and slice up my bread into kind of thick pieces. And by the way, depending on what type of bread you get, you can just obviously get bread that is already sliced. And then I just put butter on both sides. This honey butter is so good, you guys. I just wish you could taste it through the screen. And then I put a little garlic powder on the bread. And then I just cut up the rest of it. One tip is that if you cut up your bread, if you buy a loaf and you cut it up and you freeze the rest, perfect. Once I put it in the oven, I stir up my soup a little bit more, and boom, the meal is ready to go. Oh, I found these cute little bowls, well, this serving dish and these bowls at the World Market, and they are perfect for my fall decor, so I thought I'd use them today. Enjoy!